In India today, there are two really powerful ideas that are constantly in a kind of tug of war: rewarding someone for their individual merit, and at the same time, making sure there's social equality. Today, we're going to try and untangle this decades-long debate and understand the search for a fair balance.
And this, right here, is the question at the very heart of it all. Should merit come first, or should equality? And this isn't just about policy. It's about what we think is fair, it's about opportunity, and it's really about how we define a just society.
So, to really get to the bottom of this, here's how we'll break it down. First, we'll unpack the core conflict. Then we'll look at the argument for merit, and then flip the coin and explore the reality of the push for equality. After that, we'll see how the Supreme Court has tried to draw a clear line, and we'll wrap up by looking at where we are today, with an evolving and, let's be honest, imperfect balance.
All right, let's dive right in with the core conflict. At first glance, it seems pretty simple, right? Merit and equality just seem to pull in completely opposite directions. But is it really that simple? Let's just define our terms here. On one hand, you've got merit. This is the idea that we should reward performance, competition, and things we can actually measure. The best person for the job wins. But on the other hand, you have equality. And this is the recognition that, hey, not everyone gets to start from the same place. Now, what's really important to remember is that India's founders didn't actually see these as enemies. The goal of the Constitution wasn't to pick one over the other, but to kind of weave them together. The challenge, of course, has always been turning that beautiful idea on paper into a reality on the ground.
Okay, so let's explore the first side of this debate, the really powerful argument for protecting merit, and that deep-seated fear that it's somehow being watered down.
You've probably heard this question a million times, right? Is reservation compromising merit? It is echoed through India's public spaces for decades. It's the central fear that really drives the pro-merit side of the argument, this concern that affirmative action policies might be holding back the most qualified candidates. And this fear, it's not just some abstract idea. For so many people, it feels incredibly personal. And you can see why. When you have very few government jobs, brutally tough exams, and selection lists that are hard to understand, well, it's easy for suspicion to grow that the system just isn't fair. It's a very real, very emotional reality that you just can't ignore. But, of course, that is only half the story. So now we're going to pivot to the counter-argument. This side explains the deep, historical reasons for affirmative action and makes the case that merit, all by itself, simply isn't enough. And this brings us to a really tough but absolutely crucial point. In a perfect world, merit would be totally neutral, just a pure measure of talent and hard work. But in the real world, what we call merit is often just a reflection of someone's privilege and the access to resources they've had their whole life. So what does that access actually look like? Well, think about it. Getting into quality schools, having a stable family income, being able to afford expensive coaching classes, having the right social networks, even getting an English medium education. These are all massive advantages that shape a person's ability to compete long before they ever sit down for an exam. The playing field is just not level. So this brings us to a really powerful reframing of the whole debate. From this point of view, reservation isn't a tool to weaken merit, it's a tool to make merit possible in the first place, especially for those who've been systemically shut out from opportunity. It's a corrective measure. So, you have these two powerful competing arguments. Where do you even begin to find a resolution? Well, let's turn to the Supreme Court, which has tried to harmonize them by setting out some pretty clear ground rules. Okay, so the court's first principle is a big one. It basically says merit is universal. If a candidate from a reserved category scores so high that they qualify on their own without needing any kind of relaxation or lower cutoff, then they can compete in the general category, just like anyone else. Their high performance is fully recognized. Now, the second principle is just as crucial. It's there to prevent any kind of double advantage. If a candidate uses a reservation benefit at any point in the process, let's say they clear a preliminary exam with a lower score, then they have to stay within that reserved category for the rest of the selection process. It's all about ensuring the integrity of the system. This quote from the court just sums up its philosophy perfectly. The message is subtle, but it's firm. The goal of equality isn't to play favorites, and the principle of merit shouldn't be used as a weapon for exclusion. It's all about finding that middle path. So these court rulings have definitely brought some much-needed clarity, but the work is far from over. So in our final section, let's look at the challenges that are still very much with us in this evolving, imperfect balance. A court ruling can only do so much, right? There are still major issues on the ground. For instance, there's the whole creamy layer debate. Should reservations still apply to people from disadvantaged groups who are now doing well financially? Then there's the huge problem of unequal primary education. And on top of all that, the public's trust in the fairness of the system, well, it's still pretty fragile. So, if we were to make a little scorecard of where things stand today, it looks something like this. On the plus side, merit-based performance is protected, the abuse of the system is being restricted, and transparency is getting better. But on the fragile side, deep structural inequality is still a reality, education quality is all over the place, and social trust in the whole system is shaky. And maybe this is the most honest takeaway of all. Achieving some kind of perfect balance isn't a destination. It's not a finish line we can one day cross. It's a constant, ongoing process of adjustment and refinement as our society itself continues to change. So where do we go from here? What's a productive path forward? Well, the consensus seems to be moving toward these three big steps. Number one, invest heavily in quality early education for absolutely everyone. Two, make great schools the primary tool for leveling the playing field. And three, treat reservation as one important tool in the toolbox, but not the entire solution. And that leaves us with this final, really powerful question. Maybe we've been asking the wrong thing this whole time. Instead of arguing about merit or equality, maybe the real challenge for India's future is this. How do we design a system where our commitment to equality becomes the very foundation upon which true, widespread merit